There was some discussion at the time of the canonization of the Sifrei Tanakh as to whether Shir HaShirim should be included. Two arguments were presented in support of its non-inclusion. The first, its erotic overtones, and secondly, the fact that it lacked religious content. Nevertheless, these two objections were overruled, and Shir HaShirim is treated as a parable for the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Am Yisrael. In two locations, reference is made to Tzavarech, the neck. One in Perek 4, Kemigdal David Tzavarech, your neck is a tower of David. Banui Letalpiyot, Tal, a hill, Piyot, mouths, the hill to which all mouths turn to in prayer. The second, in Perek Zayin, Tzavarech, Kemigdal Hashen, your neck is a tower of ivory. And as a parable, Chazal interpret Tzavarech, the neck, as a reference to the Bet HaMikdash. This link allows Chazal to address a textual anomaly in Sefer Bereshit. Yosef, after revealing himself to the brothers, we are told that Vayipol al Tzavarei Binyamin Achiv Vavyef. Yosef falls upon the neck of Binyamin, his brother, and cries. Rashi, borrowing in part from the Gemara in Masechet Megillah, applies the symbolism of the tzavar, the neck, as used in Shir HaShirim, to this pasuk. In his commentary, Rashi writes that he cried al shnei mikdashot, upon the two batei hamikdash, she'atidim lihiyot bechelko shel Binyamin, both of which were built, partially at least, on land that was allocated to Shevet Binyamin, and Yosef cried over the fact that V'sofan lecharev, that ultimately both Batei HaMikdash were destined to be destroyed. So Rashi reads into the actions of Yosef a prophecy of events that were to take place in the distant future. The pasuk goes on to state, Ubinyamin bacha al tzavarav. Binyamin cried upon his shoulders, for which Rashi interprets that Binyamin also had a vision. His vision was al Mishkan Shiloh, she'atid lihiyot bechelko shel Yosef. Shiloh was located in the territory allocated to Shevet Ephraim, son of Yosef, and remained the religious capital for 369 years until the Aron HaKodesh was captured by the Philistines and the city destroyed. Binyamin was crying over the fact that V'sofo lecharev, that it also, referring to the Mishkan in Shiloh, was destined to be destroyed. So what we have are three major religious sanctuaries that for a certain time period they were established, but ultimately were destroyed. Which brings us to question number 6. In response to the double Mishkan, Rashi maintains that we have here a reference to the destruction of two Batei Mikdash, Bet HaMikdash number 1 and Bet HaMikdash number 2. If, however, we see from Rashi's commentary to Bereshit that the Mishkan was a sanctuary in its own right, not merely a prototype to the Bet HaMikdash, this demonstrated by the fact that Rashi reads into the actions of Binyamin a vision for its destruction, then it would have been more logical to link the double Mishkan not to Beit HaMikdash number 1 and Beit HaMikdash number 2, but to destruction of the Mishkan and Beit HaMikdash number 1. This would be based on two counts. Firstly, the time proximity relative to Moshe Rabbeinu, especially in light of the fact that Moshe was instrumental in the construction and erection of the Mishkan, and in fact it was Moshe himself who consecrated it during the second year following the departure from Egypt. And secondly, relative to the degree of Kedusha that existed. A number of vital Klei HaMishkan were hidden away just before the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash number 1, never to be used in Bet HaMikdash number 2, which would indicate a lessening of Kedusha in Bet HaMikdash number 2 as compared to Beit HaMikdash number 1. The only difference between the Mishkan and Beit HaMikdash number 1 was that the Mishkan structure was temporary, whereas Beit HaMikdash number 1 was a permanent structure with solid wall. As far as Kedusha is concerned, the Klei HaMishkan were all transferred into the Beit HaMikdash number 1. And therefore, if we need to bemoan the Churban of the two sanctuaries, Mishkan and Beit HaMikdash number 1 would have been a better option than Beit HaMikdash number 1 and Beit HaMikdash number 2.